What's up? Welcome to the Stello Fellow podcast. Glad that you're joining us. Here we are again today. I didn't drop a blog today because I wrote two, or I wrote one, and then I am in the middle of writing another one that I was going to publish today, and neither one did I really like that much. I really liked them, but I didn't like what I had to say so far. So the first one is, son, sometimes it's okay to fight, or no, it wasn't sometimes. It's son, it's okay to fight. That one just needs to be played out better because the intensity of like just that statement, it's like, okay, maybe you need to have something quality to say if you're going to say that. So that one's just got to get better. The other one is your words matter, and which they do. And again, like as I'm writing it, there's parts of it as I kind of ran a rabbit trail. I just didn't like how it was playing out, and it's now 11:58. To which I was like, man, I don't have time to really flesh those out the way that I want to. And which you're like, wait, why are you writing the? Yeah, I typically write either the night before or the morning of, and then publish that day because that's just where we're at right now. And so I'm not that far ahead of things. I'm still putting down like 5,000 to 10,000 words a week on a piece of paper. Probably about 80% of that actually gets published, and then the other 20% doesn't. It gets either backburnered or rethought or rewritten or whatever. So today instead, again, like the way this works, I will either run across somebody that I don't know and I meet them over social media, or I read something or watch something and I get a hold of that person and then invite them to come just be on an interview, whether that's in here or typically those are remote because those guys aren't usually in this area. And so I do that over Skype and record it. We're going to drop one on Monday from a guy that I interviewed who lives in Washington. And that's going to be that was a fun conversation. There was a guy that I connected with last night, invited him onto the podcast, and we'll hit one up probably in the next 3 months as we just talked. But what had led to that conversation, I put out a podcast yesterday that was like Lazy Churches Suck Part 2. He watched it, responded. We started talking. I then sent him this article that I hadn't done a podcast with yet, and that spurred a further conversation, which is the Why I Got Out of Ministry blog that I did. That one dropped October 21st, so it's been a little over a month since that one went out. As I started writing and putting things out, the first things I put out were, number one, 10 things I wish I knew, or not 10 things, but what I wish I knew. There were 7. What I wish I knew before becoming a student pastor. That was the first thing I ever put out. And then I put my story out, and then I put the Perfect Church series out, which is a series of 8 blogs. Which I've gone back and started to do podcasts of those again. The question as I did that was, like, people would either connect with me or reconnect, being like there was a guy that I coached. He was like a sophomore in high school or freshman in high school, and I was the strength coach where he went to school. He reached out after reading one of those blogs and was like, hey, wait, you're not in ministry anymore? Tell me what happened. To which I said, like, I'm actually going to write one of these. So I've had that conversation a few times on people calling and reaching out or sending DMs or messages or whatever the avenue is, and asking that question, why? The conversation that happened yesterday, the guy was like, hey, I really enjoyed this. Just want to say thanks for putting that out there, yada, yada. And then ask, wait, are you not in ministry anymore? And to which I just was like, it's a long story in here. And so I sent this to him, which then made me think, like, I should just go back and do this again. So hey, wait, why did you get out of ministry? I'm going to start reading here. It's a fairly deep question. It takes some effort to answer. There's another podcast that I did that I do. It wasn't mine. It's with Abundant Life Church in Grapevine. I am on that podcast weekly, and we were discussing the call of ministry. And in that, there was the conversation of, like, why did you get out? What's your view on that? What do you do now? Why? That kind of thing. So if you want to go there, you can go to my website, stellofellow.com. Go to the Faith tab, go to Why I Got Out of Ministry, and you can click on the link in that to that particular podcast if you want to. So, but getting started here, I wanted to go into ministry when I was 18. At that time, I felt like there was nothing else I could do, and so that's what I did. That when we talk about the idea of calling in ministry, that's one of those key, okay, yes, when you can't fathom doing anything else, it doesn't mean that you're not capable of doing anything else. Most guys that are good pastors are completely capable. In fact, they're maybe more capable of being far more successful in the area of business or entrepreneurialism, or sports or coaching or teaching or probably not teaching. You probably don't make more money. And if we're talking success in terms of financial gain, as it comes as a career, yeah, that's a top 3 marker. As we say, success, or like, did you win? Are you at the top of whatever field you're in? Fill in the blank. Lawyers, doctors, things like that. Like, there are guys that are pastors that would be better at that. And however, the call on their life, and I don't mean better like you'd be a better doctor than a pastor, maybe, but you would also be like, you'd be really good. You'd be a lot better than a lot of the ones that are doing it. And so there are guys that are really, really capable, like high capacity, hardworking, creative, really gifted humans who work in ministry, who could be really successful outside of it. And they don't, because they can't fathom doing anything else other than what they're doing. So it's not a capability thing. It is a, no, I am convicted to this is what I'm supposed to do. So that's what they do. That's how I felt at that point. There was nothing else I could fathom for a career than being a pastor for what I showed up for each day. I remember wrestling with the idea when I was in college. Ryan and I had gotten engaged, and I was taking some time to actually make some moves to put myself in position to start a career. I went to school. Like, I left Amarillo, came to Dallas, and I went to Dallas Baptist University with the thought that I'm going to go prepared to go into ministry. I want to be a student pastor. That's why I'm going to school. Ryan and I got engaged. We were juniors. No, we were what were we? Ryan and I met our sophomore year in college. We dated that year. The beginning of our junior year, we got engaged. And then I graduated early. I sped up the process and got done in 3 years. But when we got engaged, as I started to really ask the question, what am I going to do in the next 12 months when I'm no longer here on campus and I'm married and I'm now providing for 2 of us, and it's no longer mom and dad who are taking the bulk of this, but it's me. What is it actually going to look like? I'd yet to intern anywhere. I was still finishing up school. I didn't know really what the process for getting an actual job as an adult was. I'd worked since I was 8. It's the same. Like, you're going to interview, like fill out an application, interview, and then you either get it or don't. It's more complicated. Most of you know, once you get into the business world or adult life or ministry, it's more than an application and a one interview. It's now a much bigger process, which makes sense because now you're talking about careers. You're not talking about a seasonal job or a lawn mowing thing or whatever it is that you're doing. So I was working at the time. I worked on campus with the grounds crew, and I worked at a plumbing shop on the side on the weekends. I then got fired from the grounds crew and worked at the plumbing shop all the time while I finished up school, and so, which was cool. It was awesome. I went to school Tuesday, Thursdays. The last year I went, I worked Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then Saturday if I wanted. So I could put in 38 plus hours a week. I don't think I could put 40 in because of the, like, okay, now you're full-time and what that means. And so it's like I could get up to, I think, 38, and which I did. I got darn near close most of the time. So it was awesome. It was like I could work 12-hour days, 3 days a week, do the homework that I needed to do, and then I could go to class Tuesday, Thursdays. And so, like, it was a kind of a crazy year, and at the same time, it was just a lot of fun. To work and then have the freedom to go to school and still enjoy it. It was an interesting time in life. But as I did that in thinking through, okay, what am I going to do? I made an effort to do other things. It wasn't just, oh, I'm going to do ministry. That's what I'm doing. Like, I actually started a career in different areas. Like, I started a career as a tradesman plumber. I did. I started a business of my own, hanging Christmas lights. I worked a trade job. I actually was a teacher and a coach. When I left the plumbing job, I went and I started coaching football and strength and conditioning, and I taught Bible and science at this little private school in Duncanville. I wasn't there very long. Why? Because the school, it was a really small school, and at Christmas time, they're like, hey, we didn't meet finances for enrollment and tuition, and so we have to let some people go, and you're the newest ad, so see you later. Okay, cool. And then I went back and I worked in an office type situation. And I worked on campus at DBU in an office in one of their college departments. And Ryan finished up school. And then from there, I I started interviewing for jobs and ended up at a church. Why? Because that's the thing that as I did all of those things and looked at it all, I was like, no, ministry is what I feel called to, and that's what I feel confident and comfortable in terms of. That's what I wanted. Like that was being in ministry was a foreign thing to me. It was something I had to learn gifts and skill. Like, you don't learn gifts, but I had to take the gifts I had and then turn them into skills and like learn that and practice it and hone that and begin to get better at those things, because I wasn't very good at it to start with. So I wasn't like I was going into ministry because I was like, man, I'm highly capable. It was like I really am incapable in a lot of different areas. I'm doing this because I feel called, and that's like literally, it's like I don't feel comfortable doing anything else in terms of what I believe, what the scriptures say as I walk out, like I'm living in faith. I don't. It sounds cheesy as I say it out loud. It's not, but it's still like it sounds cliche. It sounds too cliche for what I'm trying to get at. It was a legitimate. I can't do anything else, so I'm going to do this, and I got to get better at it while I'm doing it. And so that's what I did. At the same time, I'm picking up reading again. What do I want to pick up? I do the things that I had tried to do. I do those now. I do a lot of that stuff now. And at the same time, I wanted to be different than what I was. I'm reading again. I had a deep-rooted desire to be a pastor, but I also wanted to be, or I wanted to do or be some things that were selfish too. I wanted to be smart. I wanted to be fun. I wanted to be liked. I wanted to be validated by other people who were, quote, strong believers in Jesus. Some of these things are really healthy desires, and some of them aren't. Anything that led with I want was probably an unhealthy thought and desire because of the me part. I still today believe that I was called for a period of time in my life to serve the church in a very specific and focused way. But at this point, it's clear that for this season, that's no longer the case. And so back then when I was 21, yeah, it was very clear that I am called, and I can look back and go, that was a specific time with a specific focus in a specific way, and that season's over. At 18, 19, 20 years old, it was a challenge to distinguish between what was healthy and what wasn't. And at 30, 40, 50 years old, I think it's probably much the same. I'm 39 now, and I still have a hard time distinguishing. I don't have a hard time distinguishing. I have a hard time not trying to chase the things that are unhealthy. And so do I have is it hard for me to not be doing what I used to do at times? Yeah, it really is. And is it easy at times? Yeah, it really is, because of the benefits. If you take Jesus out of the equation, which we don't, but if just trying to express like what are the positive and negative things, what makes it easier, the things I don't have to deal with make it a lot easier. A lot of the crap that goes on that like I've written about, like if you read my story, or even if you read The Lazy Church Part 1 and 2 and listen to that podcast, or just read that blog, I don't deal with a lot of that crap because I'm not there. I know I'm not on the inside. I don't have to mess with it, and that's a bonus for me. But I still do a lot of the things that I did enjoy doing. They were the positive things. Like I still work with high school kids on a regular basis. I still am able to use my ability to connect relationally with them on a daily basis. And so coaching football and coaching, I coach track, but I actually coach pole vaulters. I don't coach track. So those are distinctly different. If you're a pole vaulter, you know what I mean. If you don't, then you don't, and you never will. So I'm good with that. But sorry, that sounds arrogant, but pole vaulters are arrogant. That's what we are. So there's positives, there's negatives, and at the same time, the calling is what trumps everything. And so the calling of like, no, I am called to deal with the crap, so you deal with it. And when you're not, don't, because there's too much of it. And I heard Alistair Begg say one time, he was discussing this and said the same thing. It was the first time I had heard this concept. He said somebody he was counseling had asked, like, hey, I feel like I'm called to ministry. Should I go into that? And he asked them, he said, is there anything else you can do? Anything at all? And again, not capable, but is there anything else that you can, like, what else could you do? Because if there's anything else, do that instead, because there's so much crap inside this as a career. And if you can't, then yeah, get over it, and here you go. If you can, do that instead. Why? Because it honestly is better. My mom said on multiple occasions as we would talk during my time in career in ministry, I don't know how many times she said this to me, like, son, I would have never chose this for you. And that, like, those were in good and bad times. It wasn't just like if I'm talking to my mom and I'm whining about something. It was legitimately, like the whole time, she's like, this isn't what I would have picked for you. When I went in and when I went out, it was the same. Like, I wouldn't have chosen this because it's difficult. My mom's a strong believer. Like, she's loved Jesus since I've known her. I think she met Jesus when she was 8. And I distinctly remember her telling me that story of when she trusted Jesus. So it's not an easy thing, and it's one of those, like, if you're doing it, you better be called to do it, and then you better do it well. So hear this. I'm reading again. That means that does not mean that I do not love the church, believe in the church, or think that Jesus wants to do a significant work through it. Now, like, I'm still all in on that fact that Jesus made the church the avenue with which he brings the restoration of the relationship between man and God. Like, I think, like, God established the church to save the world. The church doesn't actually save it. Jesus does, but the church is the avenue that God brings that message. And if it's different, it's because the church stopped doing its job. And at the same time, it's not the place that I'm supposed to show up to every day of my life anymore. It's not. When I resigned my last position, packed up my family, and moved back from Grapevine to Austin, I thought it would be 1 or 2 months down the road and I would be on another church staff and back to business as normal, and it's not the case. Never in my life have I had options on the table to move or to a move, or a direction career-wise. I just haven't. Like, I'm not kidding. I've never had to make a choice job-wise with which position I would take. Anytime I had to move, I made a move. It's because that move was the only one to be made. And when I took a job in Tulsa, my first ministry gig was the only job offer I had. So we went to Bixby, Oklahoma. And if you're watching this, we absolutely loved our time in Bixby. We have really good friends from that time, and people that I deeply cherish the relationships that I established while I was there. Kids that were students in our group, like the first graduating class that we had. It's so funny to think back on that and be like the kids that we were leading. I was just 23 years old and they were 18. I'm 39. Those people are like 35. They're right behind me in age, and it's funny to have those memories, and then the relationship that, like, whenever I see, there's a guy named Nace. Whenever I see Nace, I'm like, you're a grown up, and at the same time, like, my automatic memories still attach you to being 18 years old and hanging out in the gym, working out with you, and it's funny. I don't know why I said that, but my only option at that point was to go to Bixby, so that's where we went. And then I had a job offer in Flower Mound, and we came back to the Dallas area, and I took a job there that I worked at for 8 years. And I didn't have to leave Bixby, but there was all kinds of mess going on, and Stan was not going to be healthy, and it was a mess, and I was a complete mess. And so we came back this way. Again, it was one of those, it was like, could I have stayed? Yeah, but no, I couldn't have. And I was at the church I was at in Flower Mound until I couldn't be there anymore. It was awesome for 6 years, and then the last year and a half were terrible, and all kinds of things. And it got me to a point where, and a lot of that's my fault. If you read my story, you're going to see that. And there were there's some crap that went on too. And so at the same time, like, I'm going to own, if I wasn't who I was back then and messed up, it would have been different. The story would be different. It just would be. And so it's not on them, it's on me. And I'm good with that. We've had good conversations and restored relationships for all the mess and everything that's gone on. They're people I deeply love and respect. And so, but again, like, I had to leave. I couldn't stay there. And the only opportunity that I went to was the only one that was there. I didn't say that well. Where I went was the only option open. And so I went to a church in Dallas. It's called Watermark. It's the only church I actually name as I talk about these things, because I had, like, significant life change. That's where I dealt with my porn issues. It's where I was radically changed as a human, because I met Jesus at 18, and then at 31, I started dealing with things the way that Scripture tells us to, in a way that I hadn't since I was like 23. So when I first met Jesus, I was all in every aspect that I understood and could know at the age of 18, and as a new Christian, and learning from the Scriptures and kind of drinking from a fire hydrant, so to speak. And then I really started to read my story. It'll tell you. I started to struggle, and then again, it was like, no, I jumped back all in at the age of 31, and I did that because I was surrounded by people that did it, and somebody showed me how to do it, and I didn't fully understand how to do it until somebody showed me how, and that's when when I talk about the church being the church, they were it, and Jesus radically used them. Again, like I believe that the church is the avenue that he brings hope, healing, freedom, and restoration, because that's where somebody showed me how to do it. I just didn't grab it on my own and by myself. I'm going to do another blog of why you should go to church. And that's one of those reasons. Like the scriptures don't tell us to not stop meeting together in Hebrews 10:25. But they tell us to do that because it's like that's on purpose. God designed it that way, and so go do it. And somebody has to lead that, and whoever leads that should be the people that are called to lead that, and they should do it really well. So again, I've never had an option, and the option. I've never had options plural. I've always had option, and so that's what I did. And when we moved back, I didn't have the next wasn't what I thought it was going to be. It wasn't another church staff. In fact, everybody that I talked to said no or just didn't say anything after we talked. And if nothing else, there's a clear answer for you. Like I think I said this yesterday and talking about if you watch daily, great. If not, then yesterday doesn't mean anything to you inside this context. But if you're not doing what you think you're supposed to do, there may be a reason. And if I was hammering the table right now, like I'm supposed to be a pastor, your appropriate response to me would be, well, are you? No. Then I don't think you're supposed to be one. Like, no, I'm supposed to be in ministry. I'm called. Are you in ministry? From a full-time career standpoint, no. Then I don't think you're supposed to be there. And that's been a significant wrestling thing for me on a mental capacity of I'm not there for a reason. And so then it kind of this weird, I just hiccuped and burped at the same time, kind of this weird thing of like trying to embrace that and trying to own it and trying to know like I picked that but I didn't, that word I don't say well. I did not all at the same time. And I need to stop saying the word didn't because I don't say it well. I always say didn't. So I need to just go with did not. And so what we do now, like we move back, and as we process through the first month and pray through and talk to people and like sought counsel, my job was no longer a one job kind of thing. It then began to morph into all kinds of different areas. And over the last 5 years, or going on 5 years now, it has gotten to where it is today in the evolution process. And so like the first 12 months, this is under like what I do now. Like the first 12 months, Ryan and I worked together. It started in October of 2015. I spent the majority of that time working on Instagram. And so I spent about 12 months, and at least the first 3 of those 12 months was like hardcore 6th gear, 8 hours a day. I'm on Instagram liking, commenting, posting, editing, planning, sending messages, DMs, responding. And it took like a good 4 months of daily work, hours upon hours, to take our Instagram from 200 to just 1,000. And I started in October, and it was, I guess that's not right, October, November, December. It was 3 months that it took me. At Christmas, we hit 1,000 and just got a little over 1,000. And then it took another 6 months to go from 1,000 to 17,000 followers on Instagram, and another 12 months to hit 30,000. And so during that time, I learned the basics of websites, writing, publishing blogs, doing some editing photo-wise, video-wise, handling finances from a business perspective. And then we got connected with the brands and businesses that we did. And then I took over all the detail work, behind-the-scenes work. When we work with companies, I handle contracts, I handle details, I handle putting the things together. When Ryan gets what's called a collaboration with the brand, she does all the immediate, like, here's what I can do for you, here's who I am. She's the salesman, and then she gets the deal and hands me the deal and says, tell me what we're supposed to do now with this. And so then that's what I do. And there's a lot of detail work to that and stuff that, man, I didn't do that 6 years ago. I had an admin that handled detail stuff. Why? Because I'm not great at it, unless that's what I have to do, and then I can figure it out. And so that's what we did. As Ryan doesn't have time, and there was no one else there. So I did that. I started doing some side work as a handyman. I did some photography gigs. I've done occasional weddings. I do at least 2 to 4 weddings a year. I worked at an off-road shop. I had a buddy that owned an off-road thing, and so I went to work for him and started working, part-time, 20 hours a week, and putting lifts on and changing out tires and selling cars and picking stuff up and helping to dress up Jeeps, which was fun. Like I had I had a 2014. No, I own a 2014. My Jeep's a 2014 that's white. I've also owned a 2015 that was all blue, and a 2016 that was all black. I drove one of them once, so I've owned 3 Jeeps and paid off all 3 actually. And so, but I sold the second 2 we sold in that process. While I was doing that, I started coaching football. I coached track. Again, that's pole vaulters, and where our kids go to school. And like once we finally had our arms around all that, I don't work at the off-road shop anymore. I still do the weddings. If somebody needs photography done, I can do it. If they want a handyman thing, like I'll do those occasionally when they come up. And we do some Christmas deco stuff, like a couple of different clients we do some things like that for. And then I started from there. It was like, okay, now we got our hands around this, and I feel like we're doing this well. We're plugged into a church, and we're doing that at the capacity that we feel comfortable and necessary and what we should be doing. And then I started writing and trying to go, okay, I'm going to try to write and speak and do some coaching on the side and some podcasting and everything else I do to try to generate, okay, I'm going to take what I've learned the last 4 years, and then I'm going to move back into the world of, I never was out of the world of like doing faith stuff, but at the same time, I'm going to actively pursue on a daily basis, how am I doing that now? That looks very different. And the point, I'm doing the same thing on the blog I did, or on the podcast I did in the blog. The point that I can't seem to get to, I'm reading again, in writing this is, I got out because it was time for me to get out. There were a ton of things that happened to me and for me during my time working as a professional Christian. I loved working in the church, and I absolutely hated working in the church. I have some of my life's fondest memories from the time I spent as a pastor, and I still on a weekly basis go to a trauma therapy for the things that happened while I was working in the church. That's not a joke. Like I actually go to this, it's called EMDR therapy that I drive 45 minutes to sit there for an hour and go through processing traumatic things that took place, and then I drive 45 minutes back. I do that typically twice a month. Sometimes it's 3 times a month that I go to that. Because of the things that happen, and that's not why I got out. I think there are thousands of pastors in America today that are getting it wrong, and that's not why I got out. Like I wrote Lazy Churches Suck because I think there's a lot of guys that are getting it wrong, and I didn't get out because of that. In fact, I think there are churches that are old, lazy, and slow, and I think there are leaders that they simply don't care, and I think there are guys who just are in it for a paycheck, and they're in it for the small amount of fame and power they do have, and they basically are incapable of doing anything else. Not from a spiritual standpoint. It's like the only place they can hide and still make money, and I think there are some really unhealthy situations that aren't being medicated appropriately, and they won't be, and that's not why I got out. I still am part of a church. I'm not disgusted. I'm not hurt. I haven't taken my ball to go home and been like, hey, I'm going to go just worship Jesus on my own. That's not what I did. I just decided to try to fit in another way. And because like the way that we tried for a decade and a half, it didn't work. It just didn't. And so now we're trying it differently, and it seems to be working better. Reading again, stepping out of a role as a pastor has allowed me to be more engaged with my family. We actually work more than we did when I was a pastor. We put in more hours work-wise, and like we sat down to have breakfast today, and we worked while we did that the whole time. We used to have, Fridays used to be date day. When we lived in Austin for 2 years, we would drop the kids off at school, and we would just go on a Friday date until they got out, because I was off on Friday. Ryan was working a fraction of the amount of time that she works now. She would come back to Dallas for 5 to 8 days, depending on the season, and just work as much as she could, and then she would come home and she would be off the rest of the month. And we were intentional about that, which was cool because Dax was in preschool back then, and they really got to take advantage of the time he was still home in a unique way. And then he started school. And when he started school, we started doing date days on Friday, and it was a lot of fun. We don't have that now. I said that in there. Saturday was family day, and then church day was Sunday, and then we had some more time. We loved the schedule when we lived in Austin. Like the schedule was phenomenal, the way that it worked, and I was putting in 55 plus hours a week. But from a family perspective, we really enjoyed how it worked. It was unique and fun, and worked really well for us relationally as a family, and we don't have that now. Reading again, yes, we have family days, but there's no more date day Fridays while the kids are in school. Sundays after church are family day, but they're also like photo shoots, network luncheon, lunches, brunches, dinners, or whatever website influencer work we didn't get done during the week. We may be working with a brand that week, or going to shoot something with a company or something like that. We work every night. We don't put in 50 to 55 anymore. We put in a lot more. Because when you own your own business, like, that's the trade-off. You don't work for anybody. You don't answer to anybody, but it only gets done if you do it. And even though we work more, I'm not whining. We chose this. Like, we picked to do what we do, and which means we are around more. I don't leave and go to the office. I get up and I make the kids breakfast and I take them to school, and then I begin to work from there. Like during the season, I'll go back and I'll be on the field and stuff like that, and I have to answer to people then. But it's different. It's not the same. It's completely different than what we did before. I don't ask or request vacation days. I don't check in with anybody. We just, if we want to do something, we do it. And we go. If we're gonna fly somewhere, we book it and we go. We go, hey, does that work? And Ryan looks at her schedule. Did I book anybody? Or she just goes, I'm not gonna book anybody during this time, and then we go. And that's how it works. Like, that's a huge trade-off, and it's a benefit. And not only that, we're around more. Even though we're at home and we're working, it doesn't mean that we're not engaged. We've been able to include the kids on a lot of things. They work with us on stuff, which is awesome. That's something, when I was 8, my mom owned a business and I worked it. And we got paid, and it was awesome. It helped to instill work ethic. And not only that, but we spent time as a family. We still laugh about the weddings that we ran on a weekendly basis when I was 8 years old. So reading again, I don't do well. Here's the thing. Like, yeah, we put in more hours, but I personally don't do well working for bosses I don't like and I don't respect, or I don't deeply respect. I have an issue submitting to authority that I think is lazy, slow, weak, and or wrong. You may think that's a me problem. I don't. If you are those things as an authority figure, yeah, it's not worth the time following you, because you're lazy, you're slow, you're weak, and you're wrong. Like, I don't want to follow you then. Like, I want to go with somebody who's strong, fast, and works hard and is right. Like, let's work with that guy. My role with Ryan is a lot easier, not from a physical or work perspective, but from a relational standpoint, it's easier because Ryan's none of those things. And if she was, she wouldn't be as successful as she is. I don't know if you know my wife or not. She's run her own business as a fashion stylist. She doesn't do hair. She does fashion. And she's done it for 17, going on 18 years, and she's really good at it. And that's what we do. Like, we have formulated not just a side savings job. Like, we made careers out of that. And it's unique. It's different. She started it on her own, and she's really, really good at it. If she was any of those things I said before, she wouldn't be good at it. It wouldn't work. We've seen people that have those characteristics that have tried to do it, and it doesn't work. And not only that, you've got to have some unique things personality-wise for that specific thing to be what you do. And if that doesn't work for you, doesn't mean you're those things. It just means maybe you're not gifted in that area. It's not your unique personality set, because it takes a unicorn to do it. So what I'm trying to get at is she wrecks it in her field, and she's none of those things, because if she was, she wouldn't wreck it in her field. The coach I coach under, the head coach that I coach football with, and for is, he's strong, he's fast, he's wise. It's like when you walk in the room, you know who's in charge. Like, it's not a question. And I can survive in that environment. I've worked there for, this is my 4th season to coach there, and it's felt like months. I look back and go, like, it's been 4 years. I got guys that are juniors that were 8th graders that we were coaching, and as we finish out, however long we go in the playoffs, when we finish the season out, like, those guys are the seniors. They're now the leaders going forward for the next season. It's crazy to think that how fast that's gone, because the environment and the leadership that I'm under, that's why it feels like that. The 23 months I served under the leaders I did in Austin, actually it was 24. No, it's 25. That's a typo. 25 months. It felt like years. And I'm going to read this one because of the distinct difference in leadership capability. Strong leaders are easy to submit to. It's normal and natural. That makes sense. Weak leaders aren't. And I said this in there. Yes, that's a dig, and I hope you see it. There's a shovel in the garage, and I got more. I didn't get out of ministry because I think many pastors are weak. That's not why I got out. I actually went back in because I think that. And And the problem is no one will let me back in. And again, like my life direction typically is a one opening kind of thing. That's why I do what I do. So like, and going back to what I just said, I just made some pretty deep statements. Do I think there are a lot of pastors that are weak, slow, lazy, and wrong? I do. Look at the culture today. Like, look out your door, look out your window, read Yahoo, and you tell me that where we got today isn't a church problem, because it is. And like whoever drove the ship got us where we are as a church, as a society, as a culture. Yeah, like do lost people run? Yeah. Do lost people act like lost people? Absolutely. Did we not do our job for 4 decades being the church the way that the scriptures say? Yeah, I think we did not do it right. I wasn't sure if I was, like I said, I think we did, as in like we missed. And it was like, wait, do I want to say didn't? But I don't say that well, so I just went with did and then not. Like, we failed. We're losing right now. It's not why I got out. Like, I didn't stop doing ministry from a career standpoint because we're losing. That wasn't it. It was like, no, I got to do this differently because the way we're trying to do it doesn't work. You guys keep telling me to shut up and get away. So, am I booty hurt about it? No, I'm not. I'm good with what we're doing. Was I? Absolutely. Did it take a long time to process through that? Yep, sure did. Did everything I just say, like if I'd have wrote that 3 years ago, it would have sounded a lot differently than it sounds now. So, if your thought process is you're just mad, no, I'm not. Am I frustrated? Heck yeah, I'm frustrated because we need to be better. And when I say we, I mean we. Like, we got to be better. Like, we have to share the gospel more. I got to share the gospel more. I got to. There's the perfect church. If you go through and read those things, there's 7 things that list out that I'm actually going to say right now. Here's what a strong leader does. They know where they're going because they're there, not because they've been there, because they're there. Like, a strong pastor has a deep-rooted conviction that he refuses to change regardless of what it cost him. He fears the Lord more than anything else, and that motivates him in every move he makes. It's Proverbs 1:7. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and discipline. So a strong leader knows where they're going because they are there. You're there, and you're taking your people there. It's that whole idea of, like, you can't take your people somewhere that you're not. You can't take someone somewhere that you don't know where you're going. It doesn't work. Then you just wander around. Like, go read Numbers. That's what they did. Like, there's a clear picture of that. Like, they just wandered around in a circle waiting until they all died. And then they had somebody that had the capability of leading. And they said, okay, let's go. And so that's what they did. A strong leader, he shares the gospel every time he gets the chance. Like, he's the guy that you sit down at the table with and you're like, dude, that guy's blowing me away. Like, I've never seen somebody share the gospel with that much intensity, that often, that ferociously. And I don't mean like, rah! Like, it's intimidating. Like, you should be intimidated by a strong leader because of where he's at and what he does specifically with that. It should scare you. If you're not there, it should scare you and make you uncomfortable. That's what a good leader does. There's your distinguishing. Like, if you sit down, if you don't share the gospel on a weekly basis, if you're not somebody that's distinctly different than everybody that you're around, like if you read your friends matter, the average of the 5 people you're around the most, if you're not distinctly different than like the guys that you ran around with when you were in college, just the kind of the norm, right? If you look just like everybody else at the office, you're probably not that guy. Like, you're probably not a strong leader. And like, if you're not told that, like if people don't love you or hate you, you're probably not a strong leader. Strong leaders is typically one of the others. It's not really a middle ground. People are either all in or they're like, that we got to burn that guy. That's a strong leader. And that's what he does. He shares the gospel all the time. He deals with the sin appropriately all the time. Like, when he misses, he handles it correctly. Like, I'm going to confess to Jesus, to those who know me best, and then I'm going to go through the appropriate response to what they tell me, and I'm going to go from there. That's how I'm going to handle it every single time. That is scary. When a guy is in a relationship with you and you have that kind of intensity, and he's like, hey, man, I need to tell you, like, there was a picture came up on Yahoo, and it was a bikini, and it just, like, it was tugging on my heart, and, like, I need to tell you that. Why are you telling me that? Because did you not just hear the story? Like, something's wrong with my heart because I wanted to look at that. Well, you're a guy, man. That's all right. No, it's not. That's what I'm talking about. Like if your response is like, that's not a big deal, like it's just about what you do with it. If you can feel the heart pull, and then you go, I have the responsibility to tell somebody you're a strong leader. You have what I am talking about. If you don't, then you don't. And you need to get around somebody that is, because it's a learned thing. Like leaders aren't born. Like some of them are. There's a handful that are born. Most of them are made. You just need to be around one to get to that point. He knows the scriptures and he only gives counsel based on them. Like the guy that always is quoting scripture, you're like, dude, are you kidding me right now? That's the one. That's the guy you want to be around. That's a strong leader. He prays a lot. That dude is in constant conversation with Jesus. He lives in a community with other believers, like other people speak into his life. They tell him what to do with his money, what to do with his time, what to do. Like when he's out of line with his family, like those are the people that rebuke him, and he responds to that. That's a strong leader. The guy gives his money to meet a need when there's one he can meet. Like when something comes up and he goes, oh yeah, I can give to that. He does. When there's the donate button on Facebook and it's like, no, I believe in that. Here's some money. Like nobody ever regretted giving money away. And he serves the body with his gifts. Those are the things that I said in the perfect church. This is the same thing about a strong leader. That's what he does. That's the baseline of a strong leader. That's what it looks like. And that's where they're leading you. Like all those things I just said, the gospel, dealing with your sin, knowing the scriptures, praying a lot, living community, giving your money, and serving the body, that guy's there. That's why he's leading you there. That's where you're going. If you're not going there, it's not a strong leader. You're going the wrong way. You're going somewhere else. You're going somewhere that Scripture didn't point to. I did it again. Did not point to. And you need to find the guy that is and go follow that guy. So like as I talk about strong leaders, like that's the guy I'll follow. Like there are a handful of guys that could call me tomorrow and say, hey, here's where we're going and here's why, and I deeply believe that Jesus wants you to come with me. I'm going to take that conversation very, very seriously. Now it's going to be difficult because those are the same guys that said, "Yeah, I think you need to quit. You need to move back, and you need to put your kids where they're at." As we process through that, those are those guys. Those are the guys that I sat down and I asked that question to. Why? Because they're there, and so I said, "What do I do? Here's what it looks like. What do I do?" And then when they all confirmed on different occasions, not in the same meeting, but it was different conversations, they all said, "Yeah, this is what you do. Do it now." That's what we did. So it would be hard because they already said do this. And then like, no, it's what this, like, here's where the scripture's pointing. This is where prayer's pointing. This is where the community's pointing. This is where wisdom from those who give wisdom based on scripture, that's where they're pointing. And at the same time, those are guys that they could call and go, hey, here's what I'm doing and I want you to go. We would really consider it. Everybody else is a no. Everyone else is a hard no. And again, like I just said a minute ago, like I want back in, but no one will let me in. Like you just said you'd say no. Yeah, I would. What? Yeah, I get it. Like, okay, I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. I never really understood that, like that sorry, not sorry thing. And I think right now, like a bulb was like, okay, maybe I understand. I'm going to read again. If a pastor does those 7 things really, really well, his time shepherding the body will go well. It will. He's going to do really good. Yeah, he has to preach, but those things he's doing well is going to give him the capability to share the word of God on a regular basis the way he's supposed to. Like that dictates what you say. Your life, those 7 things, that's your life. And those are the priority, and those are the things you do with excellence. When you do that, preaching is there. Like, yeah, you still got to sit down and study for 10 to 20 hours a week to put it together, but the authority is there. Like when people were amazed at Jesus' teaching because of the authority that he had that was distinctly different than everyone else. He was God, but his life looked distinctly different than the other people that taught. That's why. Like when fishermen from like the rednecks came in and started talking, and these guys were like, these guys have been with Jesus. Like these guys are uneducated, like foul-mouthed. I don't know if they had foul mouths before then or not, but it's like, man, we got the rednecks in here, and it is clear they have got authority. It wasn't because of their education. It wasn't because they followed the rabbi in the seminary process. They did follow Jesus, who was a rabbi, and that distinctly changed their lives, that then gave them the authority that they spoke with. Paul's authority in his speaking and his ability to preach highly, I think it probably escalated significantly when he met Jesus. He just did. I think Peter was the same way. I think John was the same way. Jesus' brother James, like, he's pretty stout, What did he do growing up? I think he was a carpenter. Like, it isn't about what some of us think it's about, and we got to be better. And is that why I got out? No, I got out because it was time. And I'm going to read here. If the pastor hasn't made it where he's leading his people, then he's leading them somewhere else. We're lacking a plethora of strong pastors, but I didn't get out of ministry because a lot of pastors are weak. I got out because I was supposed to. And I'm not a pastor right now because, I'm going to read this. I'm not a pastor right now because for this season of my life, for whatever reason, I'm not called there right now or anymore. It may never be. It never may come back again. I don't know. My role now is to shepherd my family. My role now is to help provide and protect my home. My role now is to help support and serve the body that we have chosen to live under the elder authority and to do that the best that we can, which is actually no different than it was before. My role is the same. I still have the responsibility to share the gospel. I still have the responsibility to pray a lot, to know the scriptures, to deal with my sin appropriately, to live in community with other people, to give my money and my resources to help when there's a need that's made available that I can meet and go do that. And then I'm called to serve the body with my gifts. I do that. Like I play drums. I speak when they ask me to. I sit down on a podcast on a weekly basis. I go to Message Run Through and help do that. And I don't go serve the small groups in student ministry right now. Why? Because my kid is in student ministry. She doesn't want me there. And I do that on a weekly basis, coaching, where I coach because we integrate. Like faith is a part of it. It's not integrated. It's that's what we do. Like we're here to teach you to be men, and we're gonna play football at the same time. And guess what? We're really good at it. We don't lose often at either one of those. And there's a reason. Because there's a really strong leader leading. And again, like it's no different. Like it's just the only difference, my paycheck doesn't come from the church anymore, and I don't show up there every single day in the building. But it's all the same. Like my role is no different than it was when I was Case Hubbard student pastor of Fill in the Blank Ministry. My role's zero different. Zero. Now, I don't teach every Sunday. I don't get on stage and open my Bible and speak from the Word of God and tell you things. Do I still interact with people? Yeah. Do I still counsel, or give wise counsel from people based on Scripture? Yeah. It happened last night. It happens all the time. Do I still get phone calls and text messages and requests for coffees and breakfast and meetings and and help and fill in the blank? Yeah. It still all happens. I just don't get paid for it. Unless I do a wedding, then I get paid for it. If you want me to do your wedding, go to wedding tabs on the website. We do premarital and then the actual wedding. There's different packages. You can choose what you want. The point is, I got out because it was time for me to get out. And that's what I'll keep doing. I'm going to read this again. The only difference, my paycheck doesn't come from here anymore, and I play in a lot of different areas or arenas and that I didn't get to before, and no one gets to tell me what to wear. So... why did I get out? Because I was supposed to. Why was I in to begin with? Because I was supposed to be there. Was I called to do ministry? Yes. I can look at it now and go, it was for a season of time. It was for a specific season, and it was focused for a period of time. And it's not anymore. Do things change sometimes? Yeah, they do. Does Jesus change people's roles at times? Yeah, he sure does. See that in Scripture. People did different things, and it was okay. Not a big deal. I think God, anytime there's a specific thing you're supposed to do, God's going to make that clear. And I think when we run through, I'm kind of smacking on this. I'm sorry if that's annoying you. If you go through the Scriptures and look, starting with Abraham's, and at the time of his call, his call was very specific. He didn't miss it. He didn't have to ask. It wasn't like he sat down and prayed, God, what do you want me to do? I'm feeling kind of restless. Do I need to move? God, am I supposed to move? God, show me where to go. That's not what happened. God came and was like, hey, bro, we're moving. Okay. And that's what he did. And then he was like, he's going to do that until he tells him something different, right? And he's like, hey, you're going to have a kid. He's like, anytime he tried to answer the question on his own, he got it wrong. That's how that happened. That was a mess. Go back and read Genesis if you don't know what I'm talking about. Start in chapter 12. And just keep going until you understand. So that was a specific call on Abram's life. If you back up in Genesis chapter 5, in chapter 6, Noah. That's a specific call. Noah didn't have to ask, like, man, it looks bad around here. Like, the world looks dark. Should I be preparing for something? It's not what happened. Jesus said, hey, you're going to need to build a boat because I'm going to kill everybody. Okay, gotcha. Boat. What's it going to look like? Thank you, sir. I don't even think he asked that. I think he's like, build a boat. Looks like this. Yes, sir. Done. And didn't even have to ask, like, what do I put on the boat? Like, he told him, you're going to, hey, I need you to build a boat. I need you to build it like this. I need you to put these animals on it. And then I need you to get in the boat when I tell you to. And then you get out of the boat when I tell you to. Deal. Noah wasn't always a boat builder, right? That's a season of time, right? He spent 100 years building a boat, and then he spent 40 days while it was raining on the boat, and then he spent, I don't remember how many months, waiting for the water to dry up so he could get off the boat. And after that, he wasn't a boat builder anymore. He didn't build any more boats that at least we know of, right? He was no longer building boats. God called him to be a boat builder, showed him how to do it, gave him the gifts, the abilities, that like the instruction manual to build a boat, and then after he built the boat, he didn't build any more boats. That's what I'm trying to get at. Like it's appropriate for seasons, but you're not going to miss it. God's going to tell you, and then he's going to walk you through it. You don't even have to ask. You don't. Like, the only thing you have to do is look at Scripture and go, okay, what am I supposed to do? Do that. And if you're not doing those things, God's not going to tell you anything else, because everybody he went and got was doing those things already. Noah, it was clear, like, this is the one guy that's walking with God. Build a boat. Abraham, all right, this guy, he's a guy that's following God. Here we go. I'm going to make you a people group. You're going to move right now. And they go, right? David, he goes and gets him. Hey, you're going to be king. Why? Because he had he was the guy that had that, right? It wasn't like they were earning it, but it was like, okay, it's clear, like, they're doing the basic things they're supposed to do, so God's going to tell them something else. And everybody else he's not talking to, right? He didn't choose a bunch of Davids. He chose one. He didn't choose a bunch of Abrahams. He chose one. He didn't choose a bunch of Noahs. There was literally one on the earth. And so that's who he got. Samuel. He goes and he gets Samuel. And everybody had a unique story in circumstance. Joshua, he's the same way. Moses, he's the same way. Each guy had a unique story, but he was called for a specific thing, for a specific time. For some of them, it was forever. Like Paul was called, and he was there until he died. Peter was called, and he was there until he died. John was called, and he was there until he died. That's how that looked for those guys. And at the same time, he came and got them and said, John, get out of the boat, follow me. The only guy that requests in Scripture is Peter, who said, and he even requests and says, hey, Jesus, tell me to get out of the boat. He didn't say, hey, Jesus, should I get out of the boat? No. He said, hey, Jesus, call me, tell me to get out. All right, come on. And then he got out. And then we bag on him because, man, you took your eyes off Jesus and you got scared. He's the only one that got out of the boat. Like, the dude is the only other person other than Chris Angel who, whatever he did to walk on water, I'm not sure. But the only supernatural people to ever do it were Jesus and Peter, right? And, okay, here we go. And again, Jesus called him to do it. So what I'm getting at, and I'm kind of rattling here. We've been going for 53 minutes. It's a quality podcast right now. The point I'm getting at is, when you're called, that's what you do. And it may be forever, and it may be for a season. For Noah, it was a season. For Paul, it was forever. And that's okay. And so our response is like, well, do I ask that question? No. What did the Scriptures tell you to do? The basic things. Share the gospel all the time. Pray a lot. Know the Scriptures. Live in community. Deal with your sin. Give your money and resources when there's a need, and serve the church. Do those things and do them the best you can. And if God wants you to do something, he's going to tell you. And if God's not telling you anything, you need to evaluate, am I doing those things well? Am I doing that at the level that God has called me to do it? No, then he's not going to tell you anything else. That's how it works. Why did I get out of ministry? Because it was time. I got in because I was called, and I got out of being paid by the church, and my role is no different in terms of responsibility and what I'm supposed to do. So I am going back to, when you're producing your own show, you have to you gotta turn the knobs yourself. So I'm turning the knobs right now. So shout out to Andrew Holder making this EP for the Stello Fellow podcast. It's the intro and extra music. So appreciate you, bud. If you want to catch more of his work, you can get you can find him on Spotify or iTunes. He's done multiple albums. I give him a shout out every time. Why? Because he made this one for free for me, and I like it. So shout out to you, Andrew Holder. Appreciate you. Thanks for watching. If you've got a thought, a question, a response, an argument, if you want to say something nice, something mean, anything you want to do, you can reach me at Stello Fellow, STELLO FELLO at gmail.com. I check that thing every day. Always respond to it. You can hit me there. You can get me on Instagram, Stello_Fellow. You can send me a DM there. You can find me on Facebook, Case Hubbard, or you can find me at Stello Fellow, the page. Send me a message there if you'd like. You can also find me on TikTok, and the funny dance videos I do with my daughter are also under Stello Fellow _ and LinkedIn as well. You can find me at Case Hubbard. Send me a message there. However it is that you'd like to find me, you can find me, because I am findable, and I think we faded out on the music. So anyways, if you want to talk, you want to say something, I'd be more than happy to engage in a conversation with you. Would love that. Thank you for watching today. I hope you have a wonderful day. It is Friday today, so have a great weekend. If you're listening to this not on a Friday, have a great whatever day it is, and we will see you next time. Oh, shoot. I missed the